Mayor and Council, as everyone knows these days and for the last number of months, you pretty much can't turn on any news channel without seeing something around policing, some kind of incident, something that somebody's looking at somewhere, tragedies, to be quite honest. And so I do want to applaud Chief Duggan and our police department for continuing to look at the City of Chandler Police Department policies and programs and procedures. And so I've asked Chief Duggan to come forward. It's been several months since he was in front of you talking about some of these issues, and at least let you know what the police department has done in the last few months to continue to address these items.
Well, thank you, City Manager, and good evening, Mayor and Council. Back in June, actually, I had an opportunity to speak to you, and I talked about the police department's response to the George Floyd protests. But I also talked about how, as a department, we have been in a constant state of reform and transition over many years. And I discussed how we continually seek to improve and update our policies, our procedures, and our programs, and how we are engaged as a police department, and we're paying attention to what's happening around us so we can help shape our profession moving forward. And then I provided some examples of how we actually adopted some recommendations from the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing report back in 2015, and then also the Police Executive Research Forum's report on use of force back in 2016. And just most recently, we reviewed the President's Executive Order on Safe Policing for Safe Communities. And that affirmed again that we are holding ourselves to the higher standards of performance. And of course, each day we are looking and learning from our neighbors and departments all across the country. We're learning from their successes and we're learning from their mistakes. And since I last spoke to you in June, we have continued to grow and evolve, and we have not stood still. In fact, we've made a number of adjustments to our policies and our programs. And I thought tonight just be an opportunity to share and update some of those changes with you. So, for example, moving forward, all no-knock search warrants will require approval from the Office of the Chief. So, in the past, that authorization was provided at a lower level in the organization, but now we have added a whole different level of accountability and oversight to that to ensure that all other options are explored before a no-knock warrant is sought. And of course, those type of warrants are they are allowed under state statute, and of course, they must be signed by a judge. But the reality is they are seldom used in our police department. Another area we talked about was use of force and the use of force reporting. So effective a number of months ago, all use of force reports are now reviewed all the way through the chain up to the level of Office of the Chief. And again, an added layer of oversight and accountability. So when an officer is compelled to use force against a suspect on the street, that officer then completes a separate form documenting that force and the type of force that was used. And in the past, that level of review would go to the sergeant, to the lieutenant, and then the commander, usually the precinct commander. And now we've just taken that to a different level. So we have a more timely oversight over any type of use of force that occurs in our city. And over many years, we've talked about de-escalation. And we just realized that we didn't really have a succinct definition of de-escalation. So we're preparing a simple definition of de-escalation. So as we talk about it, now we can frame what that exactly means. And then another change we made to our policy is that officers are now required to, anytime a suspect is arrested and that person may resist arrest, the officer then often would take that person to the ground per their training and then handcuff them. So moving forward, although this is practice and it's taught in training, it's never been in policy, but the expectation now for policy is to return that person to a recovery position as soon as possible when it's safe to do so. And that's simply having that person seated up so it doesn't impact and affect their breathing. So again, it's something that we train for years and years, but now it's explicitly written in policy to, as soon as it's safe to do so, return the suspect to a recovery position. Another significant change in our policy is following any type of officer-involved shooting or a in-custody death. In addition to the investigators that would respond to that, we're also going to be sending our training sergeant out to the scene. So when the investigation, all the investigative measures are completed, that training sergeant now can look at that incident and look at the training, the tactics, and equipment, and make some immediate changes or recommendations, while the other investigation may play out over weeks, but likely over months. So that gives us a lot more mobility, and we're nimble, and we're able to affect if we need to change right away based on that incident. Another change to our policy is that we've talked about duty to intervene. That's been a fabric of our department for many years. So now we are putting our money where our mouth is and ensuring that those duty to intervene scenarios are based in our training, our reality-based training. So officers will be taught that, they'll be conditioned that it's not just a policy, but it will become an expectation and really ingrained in the culture of the department. And then the last one I'll leave you with is really a significant change. We've had a standing training committee comprised of sworn officers and professional staff. And that training committee, each year, they look at the calendar of training. What training will we provide, in-service training, to our officers? And they help identify those needs. So what we did this year is we added a citizen to that training committee. So we have a citizen that brings different perspective, different insight, and certainly demonstrates that we are transparent and open. And it's very, very important to have that engagement with our community. But also, we added a different charge to that committee. So in addition to scheduling out the training, that committee now is responsible for looking at events that have happened regionally and nationally around the country, and look at those events through the lens of a Chandler police officer. So whether it's Kenosha or Rochester or Houston or any other event, that when it happens, it's blasted all over social media and the news, and everyone talks about it. Our officers talk about it, we talk about it, our neighbors, our family, everyone is looking at that event. And again, it's just through what's released through the videos, which doesn't always tell the complete story, but based on what we know, we will be looking at those incidents, and we already have, and pushing out how would we expect the Chandler officer to respond in that particular case based on information we know at the time. So our training, our tactics, our expectation, our leadership, our culture. So we can then have that conversation as an organization and learn from others moving forward. And it just gives us another opportunity to learn and grow. So again, I just want to convey tonight the fact that we are not standing still. We're certainly paying attention, and we are committed to being a leader in our profession. And we know that our community, a community that we know supports us, a community that stands alongside us, really deserves, and they expect nothing less. And that's what we're committed to do. So constant state of evolution, and I'm sure that I'm quite positive there's more to come. We do another briefing perhaps in a few months, but we are not standing still. We're learning, we're growing, and we're representing our community with a lot of pride. So that's what I wanted to share with you tonight.
Thank you, Chief. I'm sure there might be a couple questions here, and I'll start off. As probably many here, and I know you have, we've responded to hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of inquiries and questions, and I'm grateful that I was able to respond with things in Chandler that went above and beyond the 8 can't wait that we've been training, and I want to thank you for leading on that. I do have one suggestion for your last item there is, can we prioritize making sure that that is a minority in our community rather than someone else that maybe has the optics of someone who is grown up as a minority and perhaps has had a family different view of police, that they would give us a different vantage of that as well. And I'll leave it as a suggestion at this point, but I know what you're trying to do is you want to get different optics, but I think that would provide a specific set of optics that perhaps that I don't see, that you perhaps don't see as well on there. So I love your ideas. So, Council, other questions or comments for Chief? Vice Mayor.
Yes, I want to thank you and all the police officers out there that dealing with these scenarios. And I recall when I first came on in 2016, which came out, I think, the following year when you reported on it on the, like you said, the national policing recommendations. You already instituted a vast majority of those, and a few tweaks here and there, but that shows the leadership that you have brought to Chandler and the culture that you have fostered within Chandler to allow, like I said, the community policing. All the outreach that you've done, and across even to the precinct commanders, all the neighborhood meetings. We get a lot of positive feedback on that, and I think that helps again foster that community feeling that our people can reach out to our police officers at any level of leadership, either the beat cop or the commander or watch commander out on the street. I think they're all approachable. So I think fostering that culture has been extremely positive in Chandler. And I wound up actually most recently receiving some feedback from a federal level. I wound up talking with one of our congressmen, and he actually had very, very positive things to say about the leadership that we have here in Chandler in the police and in fire, that we're definitely a step up, not just around the state, but nationally. When he talks with other congressmen on what they're dealing with. He's, again, kudos to you and the team, and thank you.
Thank you.
Additional comments or questions? Councilmember Orlando.
Thanks, Mayor. I do want to echo, again, thank you for all you do and what the police, the everyday officers do. And I do want to echo the mayor's thoughts on that. It's about looking at a different optics when we do this training. I think that's pretty helpful. And if you have to hire 2 civilians, that's okay too. You have to have 2 civilians on there, or that's fine too. But I do like the idea of having different perspectives. That helps us grow. As you pointed out earlier, you came up here, some of these incidents help you grow and your officers grow in thought process. This could take us to the next level as well, I believe. So let's continue working that progressive thought process that we've had for a long time. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief.
Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Chief, for that presentation. It's been a hard year. I mean, it's been one of those kind of years with the heat, with the impact of the George Floyd, with everything that's gone on with our police force. And I got to tell you that talking right to them, to your team, is that we're proud of them. We know that there's a culture of accountability within your department, and we're proud of that. And so when you think about the things that you just listed and the things on the 8 can't wait, we were already doing that. And that's what makes me proud of, our police force here. So continue to keep sharpening the saw, continuing to come to us and ask for what you need, if it's technology, if it's whatever it may be, to make your team feel comfortable, to make our community feel safe when we're crossing paths or whatever that may be. Continue to ask for those things, and we'll do our best to support you and especially your team. So we are proud of them, and I want to thank you.
All right. Seeing no additional comments, thank you, Chief.
Mayor, thank you, and certainly appreciate all your support and the support of our entire community. But it's the men and women of the police department. At the end of the day, they're the ones out there. They're out there right now. They're out there at 3 a.m. They're out there investigating crime, and they're helping to protect our community. And it all comes down to them. It's an amazing team we have here in the city, and they are the absolute most committed, talented group of individuals I've ever worked with. So very proud, and the kudos is to them.
I think we couldn't agree more. So, thank you, sir.